Hi there, welcome to this video supporting the health leadership module that you're undertaking. It sits alongside and helps to provide additional information to support the discussion board number 1, Are Leaders Born or Made? I would encourage you again to make sure you can access the course reading material, and in particular Barr and Dowding 2016 is helpful as it also is available online via the library system. You should have started to consider what leadership is, which is what we discussed in week 1 of the module. And I hope that you've also completed the Conceptualising Leadership questionnaire. Have a look on the discussion board 1 blob on the Prezi website of this module if you've not had a chance to see it yet. This will help to inform how you might frame leadership yourself. You might also want to share this via the discussion board and have a think about what your way of thinking might work in practice, or how your way of thinking might work in practice. Looking ahead to week 2, we'll consider leadership theories through the 1900s all the way through the century and up to date now in 2019. During week 2, we'll be learning about the theories, and I provide an overview of the theories and how they interrelate. I'll also provide more information across 4 stages in the development of leadership theories, as well as to consider organisational culture. The purpose of this video presentation is to introduce the notion of styles and qualities within the context of leadership. So, what is it that makes a good leader? As we will discuss in class, there's a fine line between those styles and qualities that we believe that are innate or inherited, and from those styles and qualities that we can grow and develop ourselves. I'd suggest the best place to start when looking at leadership styles and quality is to consider Lewin et al.'s 1939 very broad definitions. And despite the age of this particular work, it stood the test of time well in terms of capturing these broad definitions. And the 3 that they identified, the first one is laissez-faire, from the French leave to do. So it's around a leadership style that provides little direction or facilitation approach. So that's as described by Sullivan and Garland. So it's very much a hands-off approach to leadership. The second style that Lewin et al. Identified was autocratic. This is directive and controlling, as Tapin et al. Identified. And the final and third description is democratic. So that is participative and encouraging collaborative teamwork, as Guppy and Galloway identify. Now, if you're using the course text in terms of Barr and Dowding, in their section they identify the expansion and wider categorizations of these styles, which again tend to fit within the same components. What I find interesting in terms of these 3 definitions really also challenges some of Barr and Dowding's views, where they suggest on page 24 in their 2016 book is that it's perceived that the most effective leadership style is that exhibited by democratic leaders. However, it should be remembered that one style will not be adopted for all occasions, but the mixture of styles will be required depending on the situation. And that's the bit that I find interesting, as generally speaking, from a value point of view, we might well prefer to be seen to be working in a democratic way, and therefore prefer that style. But actually what Barr and Dowding are saying underneath the core text is that actually it depends on the context in which you're working, which means all 3 styles of leadership may well work. So it shouldn't really be seen initially as democratic is good, autocratic is bad, laissez-faire is somewhere between the 2. That for me will be a false argument in terms of these styles. What you need to do is look at these definitions and understand in which context might they be of use and value. Looking ahead to the 3rd and online session on the 12th of November, I have asked you to complete a questionnaire, and this will help you to consider where you might see yourself in terms of these 3 definitions. As a reminder, you can find a link to the questionnaire on the Prezi site under the discussion board blob and under discussion board 1. So go and have a look if you've not had a chance already. Lewin's descriptions are helpful, but I'd like us to take a step back before we move forward. And I've pulled from Northhouse's work around leadership with an attempt to pull together different perspectives or different ways of conceptualizing the theories and literature on leadership. And the three I'd like to suggest are on the screen now. The first one, drawing from Northouse, distinguishes between trait and process conceptualizations of leadership. So trait theories, trait approaches to leadership, see theories where the leader is born, that there are innate or inborn characteristics, and therefore some people are leaders and some people are not. In terms of the process view, those themes suggest that leadership occurs between leaders and followers. So it's more about behaviours rather than characteristics. And what I mean by that is leadership can be learned. So in this first conceptualization of theories and leadership concepts, leadership is either seen through personalities that we are born with or capability that we can develop over time. The next way of looking at leadership, again drawing from Northouse, is assigned versus emergent. So assigned means people that occupy a position, so your team leaders, ward managers, the directors in the organisation. Those roles have an assigned notion of leadership. Whereas in contrast to that, emergent leadership is perceived, the person is perceived to have influence regardless of their position. So they acquire emergent leadership through others. The third and final view and conceptualization of leadership is behavior versus situational. So in the first, behavior, this shifts the focus of leadership and expands research to include actions of the leader towards followers. So looking at tasks and relational behaviors between people. Whereas situational leadership focuses on just that, the leadership in any given or different situation, and that these different situations demand different forms of leadership. This creates a need to adapt the style based on the use of directive or supportive approaches. So just to recap, trait focuses on personality that we are born with. Process theories argues that leadership can be learned through capability. Assigned focuses on the roles that are assumed by our position within an organisation, whereas emergent is that person that emerges from any group in any role and is seen as a leader. Behaviour is absolutely about action, so it's about the things that the person does. That's how leadership is defined. And then finally, the situational or adaptable conceptualization of leadership sees theories that identify leadership as very much changing with the environment of which is demanded of that person. Now let's get into a bit more detail around style and qualities. And you can see now on the screen a range of qualities that Maxwell, in his 1999 text, identified these as the key qualities of a leader. Ask yourself, which of these would you consider important? And why would you think they're important? When you're reflecting on that, think about which ones do you think of these are innate, as in they're born into us, and which ones might be learned. Can you think of a leader that you admire? What qualities would you ascribe, would you believe that they demonstrate? You can also look in Barr and Dowding in the 2016 version, that's page 22 and 23. that provides more information about these qualities. But I'd like you to have a think around a leader that you admire and think about the different conceptualizations of leadership in order to understand how theories might or might not explain why leaders are considered to be good. Let me try and illustrate this a little further. Let me introduce you to Tracy Allen. Tracy is the Chief Exec of Derbyshire Community Health Services, and she was my boss for several years while I was working there as Director of Service Development. Now, for me, she is an inspirational leader and a leader who I admire. She led the development of a new organisation formed from 6 previous community provider organisations. And during my time working with her, I saw her bring that organisation and around 5,000 staff through significant change. And she's somebody, when I think about a great leader, is somebody who comes to my mind. So looking at the qualities that Maxwell identified, there are 3 that particularly stand out for me with my experience of working with Tracy. And what I would aspire to is Tracy's commitment to a cause. So commitment to community services and delivering that through a vision for staff. But what made, for me, Tracy so special as a leader was her ability to problem solve. And problem solve absolutely anything, no matter what the issue was. She had the ability to help us to find a solution to it. So how might different conceptualizations of leadership theory explain these qualities? From a trait or personality perspective, theories might argue that Tracy is born with these capabilities, that her intelligence is somehow inherited through her family. And again, I know Tracy well, and her family have held senior roles in education in the UK and are incredibly intelligent. That may well explain her predestined trajectory to become a leader. Process, so again, I know Tracy was educated through private school and through Oxford University, therefore may well have been always seen to be developing her capability as a great leader. So in some ways the theories may argue that both of those things are the case. She was certainly assigned the role as leader, as being chief executive, and I would argue that she was also an emergent leader, so people saw her as the leader as well as holding that role formally. Again, from a personal level, I saw her behaviour, her actions, responding to the challenges that this new organisation created, and that again supported her reinforcing these qualities of commitment, vision and problem solving. And again, and finally, in a way, this also demonstrated Tracy's adaptability in any situation, be that a positive relaunching and opening of a brand new hospital, or dealing with some of the most complex issues or issues affecting loss of patients and challenges for our own staff. Tracy's style was able to adapt to that. So what this leaves me with is I find Maxwell's qualities and styles useful and interesting, but being able to separate them out as an absolute or singular view of a leader is very difficult. So this section attempts to put the important conversation about styles and qualities within a broader context or understanding of how we see leadership. I want you to think carefully about qualities and styles. They're not simply the things to be learned and bam, you're a leader. These qualities, your qualities, exist within the context we work. Have a go at thinking about a number of different people you've come across in leadership roles. These will probably work better with people you have worked with, but if that's a struggle, why not consider other people you may have read about or heard about? Remember that in either scenario, they don't need to be necessarily that great or even senior. With that in mind, ask yourself about the styles and qualities that they display, and how might you use that conceptualizations of leadership style that I explained earlier to explain their own particular style.